Well, good morning, and it's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Mike Pirro. I'm the Superintendent of Schools for Pittsford. I've actually been a part of Pittsburgh for quite a while. This is my 20-something year in the district. I was a teacher, assistant principal at Barker Road, and then principal at Barker Road Middle School, and then assistant superintendent, and here I am. This is year 5-ish of my superintendency, and it's a pleasure to be able to give you a kind of a broad stroke overview of some of the things that we're working on now, where we're headed in the future, and also it's a great opportunity to brag a little bit about our school district, and it's my pleasure to do that. And I will do all of that under 15 minutes. I also want to highlight something that's not on any of my slides. That's it's I think one of the things that separates our community, and that's the school's relationship with the town and the village. And something that people may not be aware of, but Bill and Bob and I and our board leadership team meet regularly throughout the course of the school year. And we look for ways that we can collaborate and try to make our community better in a lot of different topics. And it's a pleasure to work with both boards and both leaders. I thought I would start out by showing a real short video clip of something that I'm really proud of in our district. And it's unfortunate that we have to be talking about this, but the last couple of years, one of the things that's come to the forefront has been quite a few mental health issues in our school districts and suicides in neighboring districts in particular. I'm really close friends with a superintendent who's had 4 suicides just down the street from us in the last year. And so what we've done in Pittsford, we've partnered actually with University of Rochester, and we have trained, in our high schools, we have approximately, let's just say 1,000 students in each high school. We've trained 100 students in each school, Sutherland and Mendon, and they are trained to help create an environment in the schools where students feel welcome, to provide hope for kids, and how to deal with students that may feel like they're on the edge or not sure what to do with how they're feeling. It's real, it's working, I will tell you that in Pittsburgh. And I'm just so proud of our students, because one of the things our students did was they created this video with Sutherland. Mendon does the same thing. I could have pulled a Mendon video. Either way, I'm going to be in trouble. So I'm going to start. I'm going to just show you about 2 minutes of Sutherland.
We are sources
of strength.
We are a group of
diverse students and
adults from many
different corners and
cultures of our
school and community.
We believe that life
has ups and downs.
That all of us will go through good times
and tough times.
Our mission is to
ensure that during the rough times, no one
gets so overwhelmed
or hopeless that
they want to give up.
Our mission is to
spread hope, help,
and strengthen to
every corner of
our community.
Our mission is to
help students and staff
turn to their strengths
and their supports that
are all around.
We are connectors to
help and strength.
Our mission recognizes
that our voice has
great power, and
we use it to
break the silence
when someone is
struggling, and to connect
them to help they
need and deserve.
We spread hope
by focusing on stories
of strength rather than
on stories of trauma.
We know our most
powerful impact comes
from our personal actions,
conversations, and
messages that use
our music, our art,
our writing, our activities, our social media,
our culture, and our voice.
This gives life
to our efforts.
We are sources of strength.
The theory behind all of this is that everyone has strengths, and instead of focusing on areas of weakness, that we recognize everyone for their strengths, and we support each other for areas that they want to grow on, and we're in this all together. Our students created that on their own. We do have an advisor for Sources of Strength, and we still meet regularly with the University of Rochester to connect with our training and our students moving forward. But this is an example, what you just saw, of doing something really positive with a real sensitive and emotional topic. So really proud of our students for doing that, and I want the chamber to understand that this is something that's really important for us, is to be proactive in regards to student mental health, and that's one example of the things that we're doing in that arena. I shared with you before that I do want to take the opportunity to boast a little bit about our district, and so some of the things that we continue with is our academic excellence, not only in our area, but certainly across the nation, and that's something that all businesses and community members and parents should feel really prideful about. So you can see in Newsweek and U.S. News, Mendon and Sutherland High School were both ranked in the top 100 schools in the nation. The Niche 2018 Best Schools had Pittsburgh schools as number 3 in New York State, number 32 in America, and I thought this was interesting, the 14th safest school in New York State. We're recognized as one of the best STEM schools in America. And within New York State Education Department, our 2 high schools are one of the few that are called reward schools, which means consistently making improvements and exceeding. In upstate New York, there's 431 school districts, and our school district was ranked number 1. And it continues. Mendon and Sutherland are ranked number 1 and number 2 out of the 86 high schools in that same area. And what's really neat is they flip. So everyone will say what high school is better or what middle school is better. They flip. So next year it'll probably be reversed, I hope. So in subject areas, you can see of those 431 schools, we're ranked 1 in English, 1 in math, 2 in science, and 1 in social studies. We also, I think as a community, we really appreciate what we do with regards to music. We are ranked one of the best communities that supports music. And with regards to athletics, state championships are really hard to come by. We have several Section 5 and state championships. This is within the last year, all of our Section 5 champions in school, in our school district. Relative to art, we have students that routinely receive Scholastic Art Awards, including Gold Key, Honorable Mention, and Silver Key status. Our middle schools are ranked 1 and 2, and again, they flip. We are nationally ranked, and it's called the Schools to Watch program, which puts both middle schools not only 1 and 2 for academics, but also in their efforts to educate the whole child. In our elementary schools, the 163 elementary schools, all 5 of ours are in the top 10 list. And I'm going to break every single PowerPoint rule. So I want to pause for a second, because so far what I'm hoping that you've heard is that, and seen, is that one of the things that we really are putting a lot of energy in is around the serious topic around mental health and suicide. That was the first slide I showed you. Because we need our kids to be safe and feel comfortable in their learning environment before they can even learn. The second thing I'm hoping that you're able to see was that we are amazing with regards to our academics. Our kids do better than anyone else in the state and almost anyone in the country. And that's because of our community. Our kids come to us ready to learn. Our teachers are constantly, and our administrators, constantly working on best practices and working through professional development. We have an amazing relationship with our PTSA and our parent groups. Despite any disagreements or where we're headed, we do it together. And so we have this perfect equation for excellence in our district. You've also seen music on a high pedestal, you saw art on a high pedestal, and you saw athletics on a high pedestal. And so almost everything that we participate in, we're way up here. And I attribute that to the people in this room and beyond and in our community. We have a community that truly supports providing our students with excellence in all areas. I share this with you because over the last 3 years, we spent a lot of time looking at how we want to articulate where we want to be in the future. And not being able to sit on our laurels and feel like, and be complacent. The world is changing, absolutely changing. And so how can our district change to prepare our students in a much better, different way? And this is, in its entirety, is the vision work that we've been doing. I just want to highlight a couple things. We talk about a transformational partnership with students, families, professionals, and community based on a new definition of success for us. You saw a lot of measurements for success, and we hope to keep those. But the things that I think that we can improve on are in this area. So when we talk about our students going through a journey of self-discovery, overcoming obstacles, pursuing balance, pursuing wellness, and providing personalized education for our students. They will recognize challenges as opportunities for learning and accomplishment. They will have the skills and competence necessary to understand and thrive in a diverse global society. I could do a whole different conversation about how our student population is changing over time, and the demographics are changing, and the world is changing. During and after their time with us, they will be independent, healthy, resilient, and compassionate contributors to our community and beyond. So now you're starting to hear things about preparing our students to have, to be empathetic, to be more global citizens, to participate more in community service and outreach. Our staff will model the joy of learning. The environment of support and collegiality will make our district a magnet for passionate educators. And instead of categorizing students into our current structures, we'll design structures to meet our students' needs. And then our families and our community will be welcomed and engaged in the educational experience that dissolves the lines between business, society, and schools. Students will not only view adults as resources, but will themselves be recognized as resources to our community, matching their interests with opportunities to create solutions for real needs, providing our kids and our community with much more authentic and connected experiences. When the vision's realized, every Pittsford student will have access to personalized opportunities and acquire skills necessary to meet their potential and fulfill their dreams. What I love about this, we're not talking about college and career ready, which is important, but what we're talking about is creating a system where kids, when they leave us, feel in all the different ways that they can do whatever they want to do and be whatever they want to be. I love having the word dreams and students together and providing a system where they can fulfill their dreams. We're also working quite extensively on the topic of diversity, inclusion, and inclusivity. One of the things that has been a stumbling point for us is just the definitions of them. A lot of times when we talk about diversity, things pop in people's heads. What are we talking about, race? Are we talking about culture? And it means something different for everyone. And same with inclusion. So we've spent the start of this year through now just putting some language around what these mean. And so as we look at diversity, it's all the ways that we differ. It's everything. Anything that makes us unique is part of this definition. When we talk about inclusion, it means bringing people together, making someone a part of something bigger, and embracing it in a beneficial way. And this is the big one. This is where we're really focusing on, is how do we bring inclusivity into the Pittsburgh schools, and what does that look like? So this is taking diversity and inclusion and turning it into action by creating a school environment of engagement, respect, and connection, where ideas, backgrounds, and perspectives are tied together in a caring environment. So hopefully as you read that last part, you can see the connections between the environment we're trying to create at the high schools with SOS, for example, and you can see connections to the vision, and it's aligning these things that will allow us the opportunity to create systems and structures and processes and provide resources to make our school that type of place where every single person that walks through our doors feels comfortable, welcomed, validated, respected, etc. We have a lot of different initiatives relative to inclusivity. In our district, we have, and I'll just touch on one right now. We have Urban Suburban program, which is where we actually have students from the city school district attend the Pittsford schools. And once that happens, our job is to make sure that they feel and are part of Pittsburgh Central School District. We have 128 students in our urban suburban program, and currently what we're doing is trying to raise funds to allow all of those students while they're in middle school to take a week and go to Camp Corey, so they can also experience a whole different type of environment. Since a lot of the students have never been on an overnight trip, some have never seen a cow, or have been in that type of scene. So we're doing a lot to recognize that we have different students that come into our schools with different needs. And those differences are really what makes us better, if you will. As far as the budget part of the line, one of the parts that are very sensitive is when you talk about, obviously, money. I share this graph with you. This is our tax levy trend compared to the other 18 school districts since the tax cap and all the way through last year. And what this will show is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pittsford is ranked 6th out of the 18 school districts relative to how much increase we bring to our levy annually. So we're trying to be very respectful and thoughtful and responsible with what we ask our taxpayers. Our challenges with regards to the budget, this just came out from the governor's budget. These are the same 18 school districts, and this is the financial support that Pittsford is getting from in the governor's budget as it stands right now. And so what this translates to is Pittsburgh will receive $23,000 additional dollars from the state, which is, you can see, just not aligned with our other local districts. Another challenge is full-day kindergarten. We're one of 5 districts left in New York State without full-day kindergarten. We've spent the last several years providing data and showing the need and the value behind full-day kindergarten. The hard part are the 2 previous slides I showed you, is the levy and then the amount of support that we're getting from the state. We're doing a lot with regards to advocacy. Assemblyman Arrigo's been great, and we'll be visiting him again real soon, because there is in the governor's budget right now full-day kindergarten language. And so our advocacy hope will be to raise the amount to allow full-day kindergarten to come in without impacting the levy. We're doing a lot with our KEEP Foundation, which is our foundation for our schools. And I'll just highlight one thing that we're doing with regards to our Student Opportunity Fund. We are actively fundraising, if you will, and we're doing it through United Way right now, so that all funds, or half of the funds that come in, is set aside for students to allow them full access to everything that we offer in Pittsburgh. Clothing, eyeglasses, field trips, etc. And do it in a way where kids can feel respected and not embarrassed, and create this pool of money where we can provide what the majority of our kids have for others. The last thing that I'll share is just about our counties, our schools in the county in general. We're all recognized, many of us are recognized for our excellence in this area. Our graduation rates, including the city school district, is 90%, which is much higher than the national average of 81, and certainly more than the state average at 77. So when you combine the 18 Monroe County school districts and the city of Rochester, our area is looking at about 90% graduation. We're the 2nd largest employer in the region. We think that we do a lot to add to communities. We have a positive impact on home and property values. We attract new industries, and we spend 88% of our budgets right back into the community. So here's a selfish plug. I am also a Rotarian. And we do have one of our fundraisers coming up. It's called the Taste of Pittsburgh. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of you to come and enjoy a lot of our local businesses in the form of wine tasting and food tasting, a lot of door prizes. It's a fun environment. So if you have any desire, there may be some tickets, and also Jim Murphy, who's here, you can contact him at any time. So with that, I thank you all.
Well, I want to thank the Chamber for including me today. And I want to thank our audience for being here and for supporting the chamber as you do. And, you know, before I say another word about the state of the town, I want to thank Superintendent Mike Piero and Mayor Bob Corby for their exemplary support, their cooperation, and, you know, I've just on a personal level, the sheer pleasure of working with both of them as members of our joint Pittsford leadership team. Now, I was delighted, as I always am, to receive the invitation to visit with you this morning. And I don't remember whether it was Ross or whether it was Karen who contacted me, and of course I was delighted to accept and said there'd be a bit of a different approach this year. And then sometime later I got the email announcing the event, and it said in block capitals, champagne reception and state of the town and the village. And I thought, well, full marks for the new approach, but it does seem a bit early in the day. Then I opened the email and I saw that the new approach was including Superintendent Mike Piero in this for the first time. And I'm delighted by it. And so Mike's with us this year, and I was happy to hear what he had to say. And as our new year unfolds, so what is the state of the town of Pittsford? And I'm going to begin, as I like to, by talking about some fundamentals. What is our town government for? What are its fundamental principles? And the town administration that I've had the privilege of leading for the past 4 years understands first and foremost that we are your employees. You've hired us. You've hired us for the purpose of providing the municipal services you rely on, for the purpose of analyzing and offering guidance for the future direction of the town, not just for improving infrastructure or municipal services, but guidance to help accomplish our residents' goals for what kind of place we want Pittsford to be, for today, for our children, and for generations to come. You've hired us for that purpose. You've hired us as well for the purpose of fighting for your interests, both generally and in some specific ways I'll talk about in a bit. Pittsford enters 2018 with a 150-year legacy of good government. And together with the contributions made by our village and our school district, this legacy has made Pittsford the place where all of you chose to live or to do business. It's made Pittsford one of the most successful town governments in the state of New York by many measures. And as I'm fond of saying, this did not happen by accident. It results from an approach to municipal government devoted to these fundamentals. First, quality of life for our residents. Then, sound fiscal management and putting the interests of taxpayers first. These basics, and another one as well, commitment to constant improvement. So let's review where this approach to municipal government has taken us in the last year. In 2017, we completed our Safe Routes to School project. This is the new sidewalks on Calkins, Toby, and Mendon Center roads, a project for which we received full federal funding. We completed the Community Athletic Fields project and provided many new and improved fields that have been, for many years, so greatly in demand by our residents. We broke ground in 2017 for the long-awaited East Avenue Sidewalk project, one of my priorities coming into office. And we completed the first stretch from the village up to Nazareth College. And thanks to State Senator Rich Funke, the town was able to obtain full state funding for this project. It'll make it possible to walk safely from the village all the way to Brighton. And once we complete, in a couple of years, one of the connections contemplated in our active transportation plan that I'll talk about in a minute, it will be possible to walk or bike on safe trails all the way from the Brighton town line into the village, and from the village all the way into Mendon. And while we're talking about walkways and bikeways, late last summer the town completed and submitted to the village the draft of its part of our joint active transportation plan. And this plan focuses on extending walkways and bikeways to give Pittsford residents better and safer ways to get around by foot and by bicycle. We're looking forward to the next phase of the active transportation plan process in the months ahead for the public workshops to help refine the draft and put it in final form to be adopted by the village and by the town. You may have noticed that we began our long-awaited renovation of the Spiegel Community Center, which provides the facilities we need and preserves a building of historical significance and architectural distinction. It's the culmination of 3 years of public discussion, public input, and planning. And it provides Pittsford with the facility we need at a reasonable cost. And importantly, as I'm always fond of reminding people, by using the existing building, we've spared one area somewhere of open space, somewhere else in town, from being built on and paved over. So far, the community center renovation is ahead of schedule and on or slightly under budget. And then there are the things that you plan for, but don't quite know when you're going to need your plan. We had an example of that last March with the windstorm that resulted in a power outage across Pittsford in sub-freezing conditions. And thanks to the help and the really splendid support of our school district, we were able to establish overnight warming shelters for those in need. The county supplied the beds. Staff from the town, from the school district, from Parrington and East Rochester put in a lot of extra hours to staff the shelters and to help out each other's towns throughout this emergency. Town staff and our fire department stepped up to keep our residents informed by radio, by TV, by social media, the town website, by email, and for those who couldn't receive any of them, by door-to-door visits in blacked out neighborhoods to keep our residents informed. Also in 2017, we made one of our smartest moves in years by purchasing at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to build the temporary recreation center on Palmyra Road. Once our rec programs move back into the new Spiegel Center, we can use that building either, as I hope, for the town court or for the additional office space the town so desperately needs. Now, we're still working on the logistics and expenses of relocating the town court, but if we can, it will save the town over $100,000 a year in lease costs that we currently pay at the current location. And if it's not practical for the court, we will save several $1 million at least in the cost of building for new office space. And once again, out of 19 towns in Monroe County, Pittsford's town tax rate ranks 7th lowest. And if we compare Pittsford to similarly situated towns, and by that I mean other towns that do not have a landfill to subsidize their operations and do not have extensive commercial and industrial strips, Pittsford is 4th lowest out of the 19 towns in its tax rate. And before anybody suggests that we open a landfill in Pittsford, I suggest that you pay a visit to one of them and savor the fragrance. Our town tax rate reflects the additions to taxes approved by you, our residents, in public votes for major recent projects, the athletic fields and the community centers. It reflects as well the regrettable and relentless pressure on personnel costs driven by the state's increase in the minimum wage. That has cascading effects throughout our compensation structure that drive up the cost of benefits as well. That pressure will continue. But I've spoken already about our commitment to continual improvement. To that end, I've given our town finance director, to our department heads, and to myself the task as we work together this year for an annual budget for next year to present to the town board a budget for 2019 that holds our tax rate flat or actually reduces it. Now, I mentioned earlier that my concept of the town's duty to you includes the need to fight for your interests wherever and whenever necessary. How out of touch does a state agency need to be to think that it can come in and cut down all the trees on portions of our Erie Canal path without any public input? And I regret that we have a good idea as the answer to that question, clueless enough that the town has to take it to court. Now, thanks to Senator Rich Funke, we got the State Power Authority to meet in December with the Senator and with me and with Supervisor Barker in Parrington to discuss their plans. And the Senator's intervention also brought about the 2 public meetings in Pittsford and Parrington last week. Now, early on, as this problem unfolded, I was able to ally with a very fine citizens group that has come together to try and oppose the canal cutting, and also with the bringing to the fight the supervisors of both neighboring towns affected, Parrington and Brighton. Last Thursday, we had the papers ready. We were ready to file the papers in Supreme Court to stop the canal cutting. That morning, our town attorney in Pittsford, who was the attorney for all 3 towns in this matter, got a call from the Power Authority saying, we want to talk. So I want you to understand where we are right now on this matter, because as I look at different recountings of it in the press, it seems to me that there's certain ambiguities from time to time. So the towns have agreed to refrain from legal action until the 31st of January. The Power Authority has agreed to undertake no field work on the canal in any of the 3 towns until the 7th of February. And they have agreed to extend the statute of limitations for the towns to be able to file their suit, thereby preserving our legal position and our legal ability to act until the 15th. The purpose of this is to be able to give us time to try and work out a negotiated agreement with the Canal Corporation and the Power Authority. They have proposed this winter to cut only dead trees and undergrowth. But they were very explicit in saying we make no commitments about the live trees when we get to them next year. Well, the live trees is where the action is. And so our agreement is going to focus on working out some alternative or reasonable compromise to dealing with the live trees. If we can't reach an agreement with the Power Authority, we will proceed with the legal action while we're still within the window of our ability to do it. You know, I think we should not have to go to war with the state to prevent them coming in and cutting down a lot of trees in our backyard, something that one way or another affects the whole community. But that's what we had to do. And by mobilizing with the citizens groups and the other supervisors, we've come a long way, but there's a lot that remains to be done. On another front, we are fighting for residents and asking the State Department of Transportation to include properly sized and marked bicycle lanes in its East Avenue roadway reconfiguration. Their original plan called for 3.5-foot unmarked shoulders. We talked to them, I wrote to them back at the beginning of December, and I know that there were citizens groups involved in putting pressure on them, and I know the town of Brighton also intervened because of course this runs through Brighton as well. The State Department of Transportation, in a move that is relatively new in my experience with it, actually came back with a compromise. And their compromise was for 4.5-foot bicycle lanes. We had asked for 5-foot bicycle lanes with some marking. Now the marking they proposed was not nearly enough. And we had a meeting subsequently with the state DOT and the regional director at Pittsford Town Hall with representatives of the citizens groups and some representatives from Brighton. And that is where it stands right now. We asked that if they wouldn't agree to the 5-foot lanes, at least to get proper marking for bicycle lanes. And the reason the marking is important, as you might imagine, is for safety for people who are using the bicycle lanes. People aren't going to use bike lanes if they think they can't use them safely. By this spring, the town expects to be in the next phase of public input and public workshops as part of our work toward completing the update to our comprehensive plan. Some of you may not be familiar with what a comprehensive plan is or what it does. I don't think I can express its ultimate purpose better than by recounting an experience I may have mentioned in this setting once before, but it bears recollection. Some years ago, I had a phone call from an old friend from my law school days in Virginia. He lives in Richmond, and he said, Bill, I have to tell you what my neighbor just told me. And apparently the neighbor is someone who works for a national retail chain, does their advance work, goes around the country, and helps to plan the new stores and get them open and get everything organized. So he's been around the country an awful lot and has been to very many very nice places. And he said, I called you because the neighbor said to me, I've just been to the nicest and most beautiful suburban community I've ever seen. It's a place called Pittsford, New York. The purpose of our comprehensive plan is so that years from now, people, including especially, I hope, our residents, will have the same attitude toward Pittsford as that man who visited from Richmond. I'm working now with our communications staff to expand means of public interaction with our town government. There are more ways to do this now than ever before. You are our employers, and by every means possible, we want to know what the boss is thinking so that we can do right by you. And in the same vein, I'm going to propose to the town board later this year a new survey of Pittsford residents to benchmark how they view the quality of services and our quality of life. And also, you can expect to see the town following up on one of our key successes of last year when Pittsford earned official designation by the state of New York as a clean energy community. And we earned that distinction in the right way, by implementing the right high-impact energy practices that positioned us for eligibility for funding by the state for further clean energy initiatives. These can offer both environmental and financial benefits to our residents. Taking all that on board, what's the state of the town of Pittsford? It's a unique place. It's a special place. It's successful and pleasant. It's prosperous and it's beautiful. I know there are people out there who hold inaccurate and unfair stereotypes of our town and its people. Maybe they just need to get to know the folks who make up our town, the people who live here, who work here, and go to school here. They would find, if they did, as I did when I moved here, that this is a wonderful place, a place to be proud of. For me, just speaking personally, I consider it one of the great pieces of good luck in my life that I found Pittsford and made it my place to live, made it my home. And not just because of those qualities I've mentioned, the physical characteristics of the place, not just the things that you can measure with statistics. There's another dimension. There's another dimension to Pittsford, another dimension of our community life that binds together all the rest of it, and to me at least makes sense of it. You can feel it in our community events, in our schools and our school events, in our sports events, in every aspect of life in Pittsford. It's about the spirit of our community. I'll leave you today with that thought, with the idea and the ideal of community, of those values that unite, not divide, that bring people of an infinite variety of backgrounds and experiences together, that as they influence the daily lives of the 29,000 people in Pittsford, create this community that we all want to call and do call home. As my work in our town administration continues, I will carry on the fight for residents wherever it takes us, whether to face an obtuse state agency or to face some other threat. To fight that fight for you and for the sake of this wonderful community, united in our shared citizenship, our shared aspirations, and our shared humanity. Thank you all.
What I'd like to tell you about is a little history, and because that frames what we're doing in the coming year. Back in the 1950s, Pittsford was slowly being dismantled by the suburban development trends, strip plazas and parking lots that have transformed negatively most countries, most villages and cities across New York State and the United States. Fortunately, in Pittsford, it was recognized early, and I think I may have mentioned to this group before that there was a fire in the Phoenix building, and some people thought it would be a great opportunity to have another parking lot for Main Street. And the citizens of Pittsford got together and stopped that from happening. That put in a series of events through the 1960s and the 1970s that really guided the community to keep the village intact. So today, as you all know, Pittsford looks pretty much the way it did in the 1920s. And we can all be very proud of that. We can be proud of it because traditional neighborhood design emphasizes the physical quality of the space. So when you're walking through the village or by the canal, it's actually a place you want to be. And that's really what makes the village very, very special. Currently, as Bill mentioned, we've completed a draft of an active transportation plan with the help of Senator Rich Funke. We actually have the first $275,000 grant to implement part of that plan, which will create safety improvements for the 4 intersections surrounding the 4 corners. And just this week I received an updated draft of the design. We have to get it approved by the New York State Department of Transportation, but we're hoping we can begin construction this year. The other major step, in 2002, we did our last comprehensive plan. That plan was focused on keeping a village high school and a village library, which were 2 of the hot topics at the time. A lot has changed in the last 12 years, so we're doing a new comprehensive plan update. We have an extraordinary 17-member committee who's been meeting for the last 6 months. They've broken up into subgroups. They're reaching out to the community. We're looking at areas such as public space, housing, our commercial districts, and other issues associated with the village. We also enacted this year a moratorium. We didn't go into this lightly. We studied the issue very carefully. We consulted with officials at the New York State Department of State of the proper way to do this. And one of the reasons why we need to do this is the village code was written in 1956. There was a very different vision at that time for what growth meant than it does today. One of the things we learned from the active transportation plan, all the public outreach we did, is that there's almost universal support for a walkable environment. And we're very fortunate to live in Pittsford because we have an incredible walkable core to the community in the village. So the moratorium will allow us to change our zoning. So right now we have some 1950s development, which some of them may be getting near the end of their useful life. We want to ensure there will be development pressure. We're sort of a victim of our own success because the economic forces affecting the village have increased. We want to be able to guide those in ways so that instead of getting something that doesn't fit here or causes a gap in the walkable fabric, we get more village. If there are things that need to change, we want them to change in a way that fits with everything around it, so there aren't interruptions in the walkable paths through and around the village. So that's what this will do. There's 3 steps we're taking to make this happen. The moratorium was passed in November. We said at the time we would quickly hire a consultant. We have sent out a request for qualifications for a planning consultant, and there will be 3 tasks. The first task, which is the highest priority, which is to get this done in the time of the moratorium, is to update our zoning codes. The critical part of the codes for our commercial districts in particular and other areas that are obsolete and don't address our current vision. The second is to work with the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and especially doing the public outreach, because we want to see what not only the business people but also our residents, what their vision is for the future. And we expect that process will take somewhere between a year and 18 months. And then the last phase is there will probably be more code updates depending on what the recommendations of the Comprehensive Plan Committee are. Okay, those are the big picture things. 3 other things I want to tell you about. The New York State Department of Transportation is repaving Jefferson Road from the West Village line to the East Village line. That's expected to happen sometime this summer. Our DPW, with assistance from the town of Pittsford, is paving the south block of Sutherland Street and the east block of South Street, which are, what we plan to do is a half of each of these streets this year and another half next year. We also did a couple other minor projects which will also be coming. Right now, we received a grant to make the restrooms in the basement of Village Hall handicapped accessible. The contractors have begun that work. We have a pavilion that will be constructed on the canal. That should happen sometime this summer. That is also grant funded. And lastly, probably about 12 years ago, we replaced the rear section of the copper roof on Village Hall, which is now about 90 years old. The front section needs replacement, and that will be happening sometime this summer as well. Thank you very much.